All right, moving on to section 3 of chapter 16. We're looking at our sine, cosine, tangent ratios, and now we're going to be looking at how to use them to help us find missing parts of a triangle. Okay, using these you can find missing sides and you can also find missing angles. We're going to be looking specifically at the sides of them in this section. Okay. All right, so first thing is if you want to look at your calculator, okay, so if you look at your calculator, most scientific calculators will have 3 buttons or some place to get it. You might also have a button that says trig on it, and you might have to go through it slightly different. But if you have a TI 84, 83, anything like that, those type of calculators with a whole bunch of buttons on the front, you probably have these 3 buttons: sine, cosine, tangent, SIN, COS, and TAN. Those are your sine, cosine, tangent buttons. Okay, so these are the trig functions that you're going to be using on your calculator. For a lot of the times, what you do is you click either sine, cosine, tangent, type in whatever the angle is that you want, and then you push enter, and it gives you a decimal. So a way to do that right now is you can go sine of, type in like 90, push enter, and hopefully it comes up as 1. If it doesn't come up as 1, that means that you're in radians, which means you have to change it. So if you have a TI 83, 84, you push mode, you'll see the word radians. Maybe it doesn't say radians. Maybe it just has RAD, and you see degree next to it, or DEG, and you want to highlight DEG. You want to be in degrees for these. So if you do sine 90, you should get 1, or cosine 0, you should get 1, and then from there. So other times, other calculators, it might be that you have to type in the number and then push sine or cosine. Those are slightly different ones. But again, TI 84, 83 should be the calculator you have for this class. Or that. Okay, so using your calculator to find the following. So take your calculator, okay, and find the sine of 40, cosine of 30, and tangent of 56. So again, you use those trig buttons and then round it to the nearest third. Okay, any scientific calculator has it. I mean, if you don't have your calculator in front of you, your phone also has the ability to do it. All right, so the sine of 40 ends up being 0.6428. So when you type it in, you should get 0.6428. Cosine of 30 gets you 0.8660. And tangent of 56 ends up getting you a 1.4826. Okay. So again, calculator should be able to get these. If you use your calculator like I did it perfectly and you got different numbers, it's probably because you are in radians and not degrees. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure you switch that for finding these numbers. Okay, so now finding sides. So we have this triangle that has an angle and a hypotenuse but no other side. And what we want to do is we want to find the missing sides. So with this, we can use our trig functions. Okay, so the trig function that we have, or the first side we want to find is A. So if we want to find sine A, thinking back of our trig function, sine, cosine, tangent, SOHCAHTOA, some old hippie caught another hippie tripping on acid, which trig function should we use that deals with the hypotenuse and this side related to the 38? So the side that's related to 38, is that the opposite or the adjacent? That's the opposite side. So which trig function should we use that deals with the opposite side? Sine. So we have sine, which deals with sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So we can set up our problem as the sine of 38, so the sine of the angle, is equal to A over 37. Now, sine 38 ends up being a decimal, so you can write that decimal. 0.6157 is equal to A over 37. And now what you have is you basically have a proportion. You have 2 fractions. 0.6157 is equal to, or over 1, is equal to A over 37. Solve for A. Multiply both sides by 37, getting you A is equal to your answer of about 22.7809 centimeters. So that would be the length of that missing side. Okay, so when you're dealing with these trig functions, you just want to set it up. If you know what the angle is, you just go sine or cosine of the angle, push enter, it's going to give you a decimal, okay, and you're going to use that decimal. Okay, and then you don't have to deal with your sine or cosine the rest of the way. All right, so if we know that length now, so 22.78, so this is 22.7, yada, yada, yada. Okay, now we want to find side B. Now there's 2 ways of finding side B. One way is dealing with the trig functions, which we're going to do again. Or the other way is to use Pythagorean theorem. Now, if you're 100% sure of your answer, you can use the Pythagorean theorem to find B. We're not going to do that because maybe we messed up. maybe 22.7 is not right, and we want to make sure we get the right answer. So to do that, we're going to use our trig functions again. So using this, if we want to find side B, is B the opposite or the adjacent of angle 38? It's the adjacent side. Okay, so since it's the adjacent side, that means which trig function are we going to use now using adjacent and the hypotenuse? It is the cosine. So we're going to use cosine of 38 is equal to B over 37, okay, which is the side. So now take a second, solve this all the way through, and find the length of B. All right, after you've multiplied it all the way through, you should have gotten cosine of 38 is 0.7880 equals B over 37. Multiply both sides by 37, getting your answer of B is equal to 29.156 centimeters. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's finding our missing sides of our trig function and of our trig functions. Okay, so now there are 3 different trig functions that we have. So what are the 3 different trig functions that we have? Okay, right. And those are our 3 trig functions, which we're going to be continuing to use as you move on through math classes. You're going to be using those trig functions over and over and over again.